Sago, this is Big House again, Native American storyteller and story finder. Well, I've all my life been asked the question, why do I travel so endlessly, searching for whatever, something new all the time, new people, new places, new things, new adventures. And I've always given them whatever reason I could, but I've given it a lot of thought too, and I figured out why this urge exists in me. And here you go, a little bit more about me. I come from an Indian reservation up on the Quebec border of New York State, right on the border, St. Regis Indian Reservation. The Indians renamed it to be Akwesasne, where partridge drum. So it is a federal reserve, one of the few Indian reservations left. As a small child, about 9 months old, so I don't remember this, but I got polio, and myself, my only brother Eddie, and my older sister Sue Ann also caught polio. She had it the worst of the three of us. But anyway, we were put in hospitals, and my sister was in an iron lung for quite a while. And as a child, we kind of walked a little bit funny and maybe weren't as strong as everybody else. But at about 7 years old, I contracted a disease called leg perthes. Now, this is a bone marrow disease, and I got it on my left side. And when you have polio, or after you've had polio, you're susceptible to about 11 other diseases that you're likely to get one of them. I got leg perthes from the polio, or after the polio. And they put me in a hospital not understanding the disease. There were 6 of us in there with that same disease, all in the same time frame. So this is I was about 7 years old. So it was about 1958 or so. They put us in the hospital because they did not understand the cause, the cure, the treatment. They put us in the Ithaca Children's Reconstruction Home. So we went in there and they didn't know what to do with us. We were in there with children also from all over New England that they didn't understand what was happening to them, what disease they had, what cure to give them, what solution, treatments. So we were in there with kids with tuberculosis, leukemia, water on the brain, chicken breast, brittle bones, you name it, just a little bit of everything. And they put us in there not understanding what the treatment was, so they tied us down in a bed around the armpits and put weights, 14 pounds of weight over the end of the bed and hooked them to our feet and our shoes that we wore all the time with pulleys on them. And this dislocated our body below the waist, just like they did back in medieval times for torture. And after about 6 weeks, your body just quits struggling and gives up, and they switched to 7 pounds of weight. So they had me in this bed, in the bed with 7 pounds of weight over the end, and they left me there for 2.5 years. Now you're thinking, oh my goodness, 2.5 years staring at the same ceiling. Well, it would sound like just a living hell, but I'll get to it later. It's one of the greatest times of my life. In the hospital, though, there was zero sympathy because I was in a 10-bed ward, and probably 1 to 2 of the people in the ward would die per month, and on a regular basis, because there was all blood poisoning and cancer and tuberculosis and whatever else in there. And a lot of times you could catch whatever somebody else had because they just didn't know. Now this is hooked with Cornell University Hospital, so they were trying all the time to figure out what's wrong with you, figure out what the cure is, what the treatment was. And we were given super vitamins and a great, perfect diet, and they monitored us and left us there. And they felt if they dislocated our joints, it would take the stress off them, plus your body would reshape the joints. We kind of raised a little bit too much hell, or at least I did, and the joints ended up being, instead of a round ball, they kind of look like the knuckles on your fist, so they kind of grind into the socket. But we'll get to that some other time. Anyway, It was probably the greatest part of my life, except I was confined to that bed. And the torture actually was looking out the window, because across the street, the rows of houses, there was one house with about 10 black children in it. And this had no grass in the lawn, because there was so many kids playing in the lawn, the grass had no chance of growing. And on each side of the house was about a 10-foot school fence that they could not get into the neighbor's yard. So the neighbors caught on through time, put these fences up, and these kids were in that fence to the house and couldn't get in the neighbors' yards. But I realized if they were smart enough, they could just walk around that fence and go anywhere in the world. I was in that bed, staked down, and I could go nowhere. And I promised myself, should I ever get released from this bed, you better look out, because I'm going to see everything I can see. I'm going to travel all I can travel, meet all the people I can. And it just, I don't know, something snapped in my head, I guess, because I have traveled pretty much all my life, nonstop, all the time, never sit still, and it just is insatiable. I cannot get enough travel or meeting new people. It's almost like a sickness. And I guess the best part of being there is it was some of the greatest times of my life because of the people that I traveled with while I was in bed. And these are people that I guess everybody told me they were just imaginary friends. Not to me. We traveled, we got in trouble, we got out of trouble, and I brought a couple of these people with me today because they live inside of here with me. Let me introduce you to a couple of them. Meet Dirty Ernie.
Hi, I'm Dirty Ernie. Yeah, I'm Hoop's friend, and we travel all the time. We've traveled all over the world, and back again too. And I always try to keep one or two good excuses ready for when we gotta get out of trouble. And they call me Dirty Ernie, but I'm not really dirty. That's just what my folks call me. I don't know why. We have a very large family. I had 9 sisters and one brother that turned out to be a sister. So I was kind of like the only boy. but I'm telling you, sisters, when you have that many sisters can bring out the mean in you, you know? You can't play in your sister's room unless she's not home. One time I built this dandy little starfighter out of 2 hair curlers and a maxi pad with wings. Yeah, and I also have a grandma, and grandma takes me places too. One time we're in the car, and I told grandma, I said, Grandma, you better have brought my potty chair in case I gotta go number 2. And she said, no, you little brat. I hope that you have to go, and I'm not gonna stop the car neither. And oh man, I had to go very bad. And all of a sudden, Grandma switched lanes, and a nice policeman pulled her over. And the policeman checked all her paperwork and then said, ma'am, do you have anything to declare? And I told the nice officer, I says, Grandma's got pot. You know, they searched Grandma in places I didn't even know she had. And we visit her in jail on Tuesdays. It's good to meet you. I'm Dirty Ernie.
My childhood wouldn't have been complete without introducing you to Heck Hokum. So you can see I got lucky enough to have several imaginary friends. Of course, everybody else called them imaginary. I consider them real live friends. And there's at least a dozen of them that live in here with me all the time. But they turned me loose. A little Korean doctor, crazy enough, his name was Dr. Lim, came out with because it's Cornell University and they're an experimental university hospital, came out with an experimental operation to replace the bone marrow in my joints. And he said he could get me on my feet in 3 operations, one each year, and then I would heal up and they'd do another one the following year. And it really took 4 operations, but they cut me loose at about 11 and a half years old. And I ended up in braces and crutches, but I got rid of them in one heck of a hurry. In about 6 months, they taught me to walk again. When I come back and went to school on the crutches, the children were very cruel. So in about 3 days, I ditched the crutches and just went to hobbling around school. And since then, if I have a chance to travel, and I have, I've traveled all the U.S. I've done stand-up comedy. I've done ironworking, and anything else, sailing, electricians, photography, anything I imagined, within 3 or 4 weeks, I'd be at least failing at it. So I don't mind failure, because at least I won't go to my grave like 90% of the world going, I wish I'd have done this. My bucket list doesn't exist because I've always played my bucket list every chance I got. So hopefully this explains to you why I never get enough of travel. I never get enough of meeting new people and new things. This is Big House, Native American storyteller, and Ona.